My name is Emily Carmichael, and I've never believed in the supernatural. Growing up in a small town, I always prided myself on being the rational one, the one who questioned everything, who always wanted to explain the unexplainable. That was, until I found it, the mirror. It started innocently enough. My friend Noah and I had been exploring the attic of his grandmother's old house. His grandmother, a sweet but eccentric woman, had passed away the year before, and Noah had moved in to help clean out the place. The attic was a mess of old furniture, dust-covered trunks, and forgotten treasures. It was a place of memories, but also of mystery. "Hey, Em. Come look at this," Noah called from across the room, his voice carrying a strange edge to it. I walked over to see him standing in front of an ornate mirror, its frame carved with intricate patterns of roses and vines. The glass was cloudy, almost like it had been sealed in time. The mirror had an odd aura about it, something that made the air feel colder. "I don't remember this being here before," Noah said, running his fingers along the frame. "It's kind of creepy, don't you think?" I shrugged. "It's probably just an old antique. I mean, look at it. It's probably worth something." But as I stepped closer, something unsettled me. The reflection in the glass seemed off. At first, I couldn't place it. The room behind me was there, sure, but it felt wrong. The shadows were too deep, the angles too sharp. And in the reflection, I noticed something strange. A figure standing in the background. I turned around quickly. Nothing. Did. "You see that?" I asked Noah, trying to keep my voice steady. "See what?" He looked at me like I was losing it. "It's just a mirror, Em. Probably just dust playing tricks." But as I stared back into the reflection, I saw it again. The figure, clearer this time, standing in the corner of the room behind me, barely visible. It was tall, its features obscured by shadow, but I felt the weight of its presence as though it were staring directly at me. I took a step back. "Okay, that's enough. Let's get out of here." But Noah, ever the skeptic, didn't listen. He reached out and touched the glass. The moment his fingers made contact, a strange sound filled the room, a low, distorted hum. And then the reflection shifted. The room behind me, in the mirror, changed. It was no longer the familiar attic we stood in. It was different. It was darker. The shadows were deeper. And the figure, it was moving now. Noah, what did you do?" I asked, my heart pounding. Noah backed away quickly, eyes wide. I didn't touch anything." But he had, I realized, and the mirror had responded. The figure in the reflection grew clearer, its features coming into focus. A tall, gaunt man in old-fashioned clothes, his face pale and twisted in an expression of pain or rage. His eyes, dark, hollow, were locked onto mine. My breath caught in my throat. "Emily." The voice echoed from the mirror. It wasn't Noah's voice, but it was familiar. It was my mother's voice, the one I hadn't heard in years. My heart raced. "Noah, we need to go," I whispered, my voice trembling. But Noah wasn't listening. He was transfixed by the mirror. His eyes widened, his mouth moving but no sound coming out. His hand stretched toward the glass once again. But this time, it was as if the mirror was pulling him in. Before I could stop him, his fingers grazed the surface. The reflection rippled like water disturbed by a stone. And in an instant, Noah was gone. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen in place, staring at the empty spot where Noah had just been. My thoughts were racing. The mirror. The reflection. Had Noah really been pulled through? Or was I losing my mind? I looked around the room frantically, but Noah wasn't anywhere. The attic seemed to have swallowed him up. It was silent, save for the hum of the mirror, which now seemed almost alive and waiting. I reached out, not knowing what I was doing, my hand trembling as I brushed the surface of the glass. It was cold. So cold, like the touch of a corpse. And then I felt it. A pull, gentle but insistent, tugging at my very soul. I tried to pull away, but it was like the mirror had locked its grip on me. I felt my heart race, my thoughts spiraling out of control. And then, Without warning, I was pulled. Through. The world shifted violently. One moment, I was in the attic. The next, I was standing in an endless void, a place between worlds. The sky was a sickly shade of green, with dark clouds swirling above me. The ground beneath my feet was soft, like it was made of some kind, of strange organic material. And in the distance, I saw the outline of a city. I wasn't alone. The tall, gaunt figure from the reflection was standing in front of me now, his face twisted in that same tortured expression. His eyes glowed faintly, as if he were some kind of thing from another dimension. "You should not have come here," he said, his voice low and rasping. "But now that you have, you cannot leave." "Noah," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Where is he? What have you done with him?" The figure smiled, but it wasn't a reassuring smile. It was twisted, like a predator savoring its prey. "He is part of this world now, and soon you will be too." Suddenly, the ground beneath me trembled. The sky cracked open, and I heard the whispers, thousands of voices, all speaking at once, calling out to me. Some of them were familiar, my mother's voice, Noah's voice, but others were strange, guttural, filled with malice. And then the odd world around me changed again. I was no longer standing in a void. I was in the attic again, but something was horribly wrong. The shadows were deeper. The air was thick with the scent of decay. And Noah was standing in front of me, but his eyes were blank, lifeless. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He was a thing now. I reached out to him, my heart aching. "Noah, please, come back." But he didn't respond. He couldn't. And that's when I realized the mirror had not only pulled me into another dimension, it had taken him. And it wasn't done yet. I stood there facing the shell of my friend, unable to move. His body, his soul, was still trapped in this alternate reality, in the grasp of whatever dark force ruled this place. The gaunt figure stepped forward, his presence heavy, suffocating. "You see, Emily," he said, his voice dripping with cold amusement, "this world, our world, is a prison, a mirror, a reflection of what you fear the most." I looked around, the city now fully revealed before me. It was twisted and broken, with jagged towers reaching toward the sky and streets that seemed to shift beneath my feet. "You must choose," the figure continued, his eyes gleaming. "Live forever in this place or return to your world and forget everything. Forget Noah. Forget this truth." I didn't know what to say. How could I make a choice? The thought of forgetting, of losing Noah forever, felt like a death in itself. But the idea of staying here, trapped in this nightmare, was worse. "I will not forget him," I said, my voice filled with resolve. "I will find a way out." And in that moment, the mirror's hum grew louder, and I knew I had made my choice. The ground beneath my feet shook violently, as if the very fabric of reality was bending, warping, trying to decide what to do with me. The gaunt figure stepped back, his twisted smile never leaving his face. But I didn't look at him anymore. I couldn't. I was focused on something else now. Noah, his lifeless eyes staring into nothingness, stood as a reminder of the price I'd already paid. I couldn't afford to lose myself. Not now. I had to find him. I had to get us both out. I turned toward the city behind me, the dark, broken thing that had once seemed so distant, now looming close. The whispers were growing louder, reverberating, in my skull like 1,000 voices trapped inside a hollow chamber. It was a maddening sound, but I gritted my teeth and pressed on. "Noah," I called, my voice raw. The gaunt figure's laugh echoed around me. "He cannot hear you, Emily. He is already beyond your reach, beyond both of your worlds." I didn't stop. I refused to listen. My steps were slow at first, hesitant, but then they grew more urgent. The city towered ahead, its spires twisting, upward like monstrous fingers grasping at the sickly green sky. The streets were filled with shadows, strange and shifting, as though they were alive, watching me. As I walked, the faces of people, their eyes hollow and empty, flickered in and out of existence. Some whispered, some screamed, but none of them spoke to me directly. They were all trapped in this dimension, this mirror world, like echoes of the life that should have been. I could feel something watching me from the edges of my vision, but every time I turned, it was gone. The mirrors on the buildings, if that's what they were, reflected nothing but empty streets and endless black. There was no escaping the fact that I was walking deeper into the heart of this nightmare. Eventually, I reached the center of the city. A plaza, once grand and beautiful, but now shattered and abandoned. In the center stood a massive statue, a monument to an ancient god. Its features were warped, elongated, too grotesque to look at for long. The eyes were hollow, like they were made to swallow all light. And then I saw it. A large, ornate mirror standing alone in the middle of the plaza. It was like no other mirror I had seen. There was something alive about it, as though it pulsed with a dark energy, a tangible force that sent a cold shiver through my body. Noah was standing in front of it. His body was still there, but his face... It wasn't him anymore. The reflection was too sharp, too distorted. The darkness from the mirror had already begun to consume him. "Noah!" I shouted again, running toward him. But as I got closer, he turned toward me. His eyes weren't empty anymore. They were filled with darkness, pure, consuming darkness. And they weren't just looking at me. They were staring into me, seeing through me. There was nothing of the Noah I knew in those eyes. Only the emptiness of this world. "You shouldn't have come." His voice wasn't his own anymore. It was cold, distant, like it came from the other side of the mirror. "You belong here now." I felt a cold, jagged pain shoot through my chest. It was like he was pulling at something inside me, like he was trying to take my soul too. I reached for him, but the mirror pulsed again, and my fingers slipped through the reflection, as if the glass was liquid. Suddenly, I was falling through it, into a vast, endless void. I don't know how long I was falling. Time in this place didn't seem to work the way it should. Every second felt like an eternity. But eventually, my descent stopped. I wasn't on the ground anymore. I was floating in midair, suspended in a realm that seemed to exist outside of time. Around me, the fabric of reality itself twisted, shifting, bending, warping. The mirror was everywhere, all around me in every direction. The reflection of myself was fractured and splintered into countless shards, each version of me staring back with wide, terrified eyes, and in the distance I could hear them. The voices, the whispers. They were coming closer, growing louder, until they filled every corner of my mind. Emily. They spoke my name, but it wasn't just one voice. It was thousands, all of them trying to get through at once. "Help us!" I spun around, but there was no escape. The mirrors surrounded me, each one showing a different version of myself, a different reality. Some were peaceful, happy. Others were dark, filled with grotesque versions of my life, versions that should never have been. And then I saw it. The all-white, gaunt figure was standing in front of me once again, his twisted smile ever present. "You're not the first to come here," he said. "Many have fallen into the trap. Many have tried to escape. But the mirror always finds a way to keep them, just like it will keep you." "Where is Noah?" I demanded, stepping forward. "Where is he?" The figure's smile grew wider, almost too wide for his face. "He is here, Emily. He is part of this now. He will never return. And neither will you." "No," I said, shaking my head. "You're lying. There has to be a way." The figure stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "You have to accept it. This place, this world, it feeds on the very essence of what you fear most. You're trapped, like everyone else. You're trapped in the reflection." I clenched my fists, a fire rising in my chest. "I'm not afraid of you," I said, my voice steady. "I'm not afraid of this world. I'll find a way out." And in that moment, Something clicked. It was like a door opening in my mind. The truth of this place became clear to me. I had to break the mirror. I had to shatter it. I couldn't fight it by staying inside. I needed to destroy the thing that had trapped me here, to tear down the reality that was feeding on fear and confusion. With everything I had, I reached out and slammed my fist into the nearest mirror. The glass shattered with a deafening crash, and in that instant, the entire world seemed to tremble. The ground cracked, the reflections twisted and screamed. I had no idea what was happening, but I didn't care. I kept fighting. I kept breaking. The mirrors, tearing apart the world that had held me captive. With each shattering piece, the world around me began to unravel. And then, just as everything seemed to collapse, I saw it. Noah. His eyes were clear again. His true self. He was standing in front of me, real and whole, no longer part of this distorted nightmare. He whispered, a faint smile crossing his face. You found me. I ran toward him, and together we stepped through the final broken mirror, back to our world. When I woke up, I was back in the attic. The mirror was gone. The room was still dusty and old, but everything felt normal again. Noah was beside me, looking just as confused as I felt. What the hell just happened? He asked, rubbing his temples. I didn't know how to explain it. I didn't even know if I understood it myself. But we were free. And the mirror? I never saw it again.